Okay. Oh, is it time? I can never hear the music.
Fans, welcome back for another week of the 5-3-1, where we take our top 5 lists on a particular subject, vote it down to a top 3, and then debate that top 3 down to a number 1. And Dave, this was... How many people didn't give us lists for this? Was it only down to 1?
I had there's one of us, one who didn't get back to me in time, and then AJ forgot to get back to us, and then there was one, Jake,
author, friend of the show.
First show, yeah, he just said, "Know what? I don't want to do this guy."
Randy was one of the first ones to jump on board.
Yeah,
and
he's a polarizing individual. I think let's let the cat out of the bag before you go to it. We didn't even say it. We're doing top 5 Hogan matches.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I was rushing ahead.
Yeah, what you gonna do, brother? When the 5-3-1 is all about Hogan. What you gonna do?
Jake's gonna abstain.
Please, continue, sir.
Now, Randy had Hogan versus Flair, Bash at the Beach 94. Hogan versus Bossman, Saturday night's main event, the cage match, 5/27/89. Hogan versus Savage, WrestleMania 5. Hogan versus The Rock, WrestleMania 18. And Hogan versus Stan Hansen, Wrestling Summit 1990.
He picked some good ones. You know, it's funny. I rushed my list because I forgot to do mine right before this. And I want to give props to Randy. In fact, I'm not even going to steal them. I'm just going to own it right now because I want to give props to Randy. Props on the Stan Hansen match. And props on, even though I think a lot of other people will probably have it, the Boss Man cage match. I forgot about that one too.
Yeah, that really defined that blue cage for like a whole generation of us. Hogan versus Hansen, I haven't seen. I have to go find that on YouTube after we get done.
Yeah.
As well as watch last night's Dynamite.
Yeah, Joe, as we record this, Joe does not know the closing angle, which I think is great. He'll have to.
And somehow I've avoided spoilers all day, which
is
in this
really
day and
amazing.
age is amazing.
Yeah, I found them on social media. I didn't see them this morning, but I was avoiding them. But like afterwards, yeah, they just popped up in my feed. Nope, it was right there.
Wow. Now, who do you have for our first list today?
Let's see. I got Mikey Flynn. He's got Hogan Rock Mania, Hogan Flair Havoc 94. Hogan Shawn LOL SummerSlam 2005.
Oh, is that with Shawn overselling?
It's got to be the overselling, yeah. And he's got Hogan Savage Mania 5, and then get this, Hogan Stan Hansen Wrestling Summit 1990. This may actually be the one gem of him. So, as Mike put it, so that's kind of funny. So Mike Flynn and Randy both having that Hogan Hansen match, and I feel like I kind of remember this, but God, I want to see it now.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to watch it. Now, Jesse from New Hampshire, we were about to record yesterday, and we realized that we didn't have Jesse. And Dave shut that shit down immediately. He said,
Jesse.
Not till my man gets to me.
Yeah.
And then Jesse got to us, at the end of the live show about when we were recording?
Yeah, he had some stuff. It was actually right before the live show, but we were like right in between stuff, so I just...
Yeah, and he's like, can I give it to you when I get home? And it's like, no, Jesse, we need it now. We're on a strict timeline. Yeah. AJ's not going to show up if we don't record this now.
And here's the funny thing about that. We didn't end up getting AJ's list, but I didn't. I kept Jesse's list. He said, AJ, you'll get one this week, brother.
Now, Jesse's
here for the show more often. What's up, AJ?
Yes, Hogan versus Warrior, WrestleMania 6. Hogan versus Andre, WrestleMania 3. Hogan versus Bundy, WrestleMania 2.
Sure.
Hogan versus Bockwinkel, AWA title, June of 1982.
Props.
Hogan versus Bossman, cage match, Saturday night's main event 21. And his honorable mention was he was digging around on the network, and he found a Hogan versus Morocco cage match that he said wasn't very long, but like really showed the best of them. And that's another one I might have to go dig up while we still have the WWE network for a couple more days.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, that's Hogan Bockwinkel too. I'm gonna have to look that up too. That's one I don't recall too, but I didn't see a lot of Hogan's AWA stuff back in the day. I think I've seen some on DVDs throughout the years, collections of stuff. But with Hogan matches, what I tend to remember is the stuff I like grew up on, the big moments. You know, the Andres, the Mr. Wonderfuls, the Pipers.
Yeah, I actually got that set that I sent you the picture of, the VHS of Mania. One of the sets that they took was from a bunch of like Memphis tapes
Mm.
of guys that got big elsewhere, and one was Hogan. It's called like the Lost Matches. So I might go check out some Hogan in Memphis, but yeah, I'm not too familiar with his AWA run. Even his old WWF run, the original one where he was the heel, like I believe it was right before Rocky. I've only
Right.
seen very little of that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've seen the stuff of him and Andre at Shea Stadium and stuff like that.
Okay.
But yeah, it's also just stuff that I've seen, like classic stuff. There's stuff on YouTube of I don't remember if I saw the match, but it was one of the most impressive things I ever saw was Tony Atlas press slamming Hulk Hogan. For those who've never seen that, you can just Google Tony Atlas press slamming Hulk Hogan, and he does. He makes a full extension and he picks Hogan up and press slams him. It's unbelievable.
Wow. So who do you got for our list next?
Oh, let's see. Who do we got here? We got Mikey and Fred from the Facebook page. He's got Hogan versus Rock. He didn't put where some of these are, but I know him. Hogan versus Slaughter. That's going to be WrestleMania 7. Hogan Savage. I'm going to assume that's the one from WrestleMania 5. Hogan and Mr. T versus Piper and Hordorf. And I'm going to say this is probably the first pay-per-view, Hogan and Sting. So,
Okay, yeah.
I think that was Starrcade 97. So,
yeah, that was definitely a packed list. And because that whole tag match with Mr. T and everything,
yeah.
I believe that was made a tag match because Piper didn't want to, I believe, job to Mr. T. And if you watch that, every time Piper gets involved with Mr. T, he's preventing him from doing anything.
Yes. Yeah,
a lot of like grabbing his arms, a lot of front face locks, really trying to shut down his offense because he was that opposed to that Hollywood crossover.
Yeah, he was definitely, he wanted to protect the business at all costs, and he thought it was, I don't want to say disgraceful, stupid, whatever you want to use, but he was not a fan of it, and he definitely wanted to shut that shit down.
I mean, I think he saw it as both disgraceful and stupid. I mean, we grew up with the WWE during that time frame, so I think, it was part of what we watched as wrestling. So we got used to the celebrity crossover.
I'll tell you what, like, I think it's all right if it's done simple, it's done right, and it's done with certain people. How
do you feel about Bad Bunny?
Okay, here's let me, before I get about Bad Bunny, let me break it down. I won't just attack this guy. I'm gonna make an example of where I was going with this. Okay, good celebrity crossovers. Shaquille O'Neal, monster.
Yeah, that was
giant.
really good.
All right, I don't have a problem with Mr. T. Actually, guy's jacked. He was a huge star. Had a tough man competition background. Mike Tyson, no problem with that. Ronda Rousey, no problem with that. Stuff like that. Here's where I have a little issue of it. I want my wrestling to be believable. Jay Leno, no. Get the fuck out of here with that shit. All right? Dennis Rodman and Karl Malone are kind of gray fucking areas. I really am not a big fan of basketball players being in the main event. I make an exception for Shaquille O'Neal because that motherfucker is big as a house and he wrestles in Andre the Giant style. And I know Shaquille has made a serious attempt at training for professional wrestling and MMA, and he's always kept himself in good shape.
And Karl Malone and Rodman were weird because they were like big, but they were also lanky. So like on a court, it would make sense, but like almost for the brawling style they were doing, it wasn't the best. But I mean, that was what a high point in our wrestling fandom. So I'm always gonna have a soft spot for it.
Yeah, and I put them in a gray area because of that, because they also were athletes, especially Malone. And that's not a knock on Rodman, but Malone definitely had a bigger upper body for sure. But it's gray area. I'm not a big fan. Kevin Green, he was a good one. I thought from the NFL did well. Mongo McMichael sucked. I didn't have him, but he was so bad at what they were doing with him. To me, you have to.
He was around the business for forever too.
Yeah.
Made it into the Horsemen.
He did, and they all love him. Like they all say nice things about him, and they talk about what it meant. And yes, I get it. He was a Super Bowl champion, but from as a wrestling guy who, look, if you kept him limited and did things once in a while, Mongo was just on TV too much, and his stuff was not very good. His footwork was probably the worst footwork of anybody I think I've ever seen in wrestling. There's just stuff out you can still see on Twitter and YouTube where he's just stumbling around, and it looks awful.
And I think Shivani said that he didn't do any actual training. Like anything that happened in the ring with him was natural. And I mean, that's why such a little amount of it was good, I think. But
probably,
I mean, he had that natural athletic inclination. So
yeah, the biggest thing, he was a legit tough guy. But yeah, there's stuff. So now Bad Bunny, I'm not a fan. I'm not familiar with Bad Bunny. Obviously, he's done for the crossover. Now, if this guy's amazing, he does some wild shit, and he's working 24/7. He owns a ring, and
he's a 24/7 champion.
Fuck out of here with that choke of a belt. But yeah, as of now, no. I don't want this guy. But you know what? Here's another thing too. WWE has relied too much over the years on a promotion for that shit. We see this all the time at Mania. It's got to be some celebrity, something happens. And
see, at Mania, I think is the only time I could excuse the celebrity involvement, but I don't necessarily want to see him get in the ring. Like a Pat McAfee is rare.
Yes, there you go.
Who was another one? Stephen Amell.
Yeah, he was fine.
He was fine, but I mean,
nothing great. I wasn't a big fan of him either.
No, and that's what they're going to be. Even if they do their best, it's going to be fine as a wrestler. And it's like, if you're going to have something like that, why not just give it to a lower card guy to get on that show?
And here's the difference with Pat McAfee, too. What did that guy do? That guy had already trained with Rip Rogers and stuff, behind the scenes for a long time and was naturally a good talker. Ronda Rousey, love her or hate her. A lot of people didn't like her. But what was Ronda Rousey? A lifelong fan with natural athletic ability and toughness who wanted to do this.
And notice how after she left that women's division, I wouldn't say they took a huge dip, but there was definitely a period of time where they had to readjust their stars and get used to life after her.
Yeah, Becky Lynch became the hot star, but it was Ronda Rousey's involvement that helped make them all in the main event. That's just a fact. Like, Becky got really hot, so that helped. But if it wasn't for Ronda's crossover appeal from, being an Olympian, being a UFC champion, like, you probably wouldn't have had that as a main event that year. Glad we did. It was good for the women, and they deserve it. I hope the women get another spot sometime, but yeah.
Now that we've meandered far enough away from the list, let's get back to
Scott
from Voluntown. We got Hogan versus The Rock, WrestleMania 18. Hogan versus Hansen, Wrestle Summit 1990. Hogan versus Tenryu, SWS 91.
Ooh.
Hogan versus Bossman, Saturday Night Main Event Cage Match. And Hogan versus Zeus and his manager Brell, No Holds Barred 1989. I was tempted to put that on there because is No Holds Barred the greatest one of the greatest early cinematic matches?
Oh, wow. What a concept to look at it that way.
Well, because if you think about it, like back then, they towed the line so thin between whether it was a movie or whether it was Hulk Hogan, because it was Hulk Hogan, it was the WWF champion.
Mm-hmm.
They even brought Zeus into the wrestling sphere.
Sure.
So I would almost call that the earliest cinematic match.
He wasn't Hogan in the movie, though. He was Rip something.
Yeah, Rip something. But I mean, I think if that was done 15 years later, that would have been a WWF production, and that would have had Hogan's name on it, 100%.
Sure. Yeah, interesting. Regardless, fuck that movie.
I just blew your mind with that hot take. You're like, I don't even know what to do right now.
Yeah, I don't know what to think about that.
I feel like such a pervert.
I feel sick. What do you got left for the list?
I got me.
All right, I got me. So,
well, here I'll go, and then we'll give you the headlining spot because I got Hogan versus Andre, WrestleMania 3. Hogan versus Savage, WrestleMania 5. Hogan versus Warrior, WrestleMania 6. Hogan versus Bossman, cage match, Saturday night's main event. And Hogan versus Bundy, WrestleMania 2. I have a hard time with Hogan. So my deep fandom of his has to be that early WrestleMania run. You've talked about the moment where Andre snatches the chain off of him. I remember Bundy when I was a kid being like just this huge lump that he had to go up against. Obviously, Hogan versus Savage, the mega powers colliding. Hogan versus Warrior, that was huge when we were younger. And I already spoke on that cage match being like, it defined the blue cage for a while for me.
The superplex off the cage. Yeah. So I got, interesting enough, I'm the only one apparently who put this guy down. Hogan versus Muta from Japan. That happened around 93. And,
wow, I got to look that up.
Yeah, I don't remember if that's an IW, like a New Japan show or not. I believe it is. But so yeah, I got that. I got obviously Hogan Andre, right? Mania 3. I feel you have to. I have Hogan versus Mr. Wonderful in the blue steel cage from Saturday Night's Main Event. This is the match where they actually both landed on the floor about the same time, and they kept slowing it down, and then they got back in and they restarted the match. Coincidentally happened in Hartford, Connecticut. So that was where the tape.
I'm not surprised to see a Paul Orndorff match pop up on yours because it seems like if there's a list and Orndorff could make his way on there, Dave will get him on there.
Oh, definitely will. I'm a big fan. I'd love to interview that guy someday. I got clock's probably ticking on that. Love you, Paul. I got Piper in the War to Settle the Score on MTV.
Oh wow! I forgot about that, and I just rewatched that.
Yeah.
Before our whole Piper segment the other week.
The intensity is why I like this. It's a non-finish, but the maybe Hogan won by DQ, but it was basically a non-finish. And this is where T gets involved. You know, Orton, Mr. Wonderful all get involved. It's chaos, but the intensity, the crowd reaction.
Is that when Cyndi Lauper gets hit and then her manager boyfriend gets body slammed?
That's what led to the score, the settle the score there. Yeah, that's what led to that. That was the angle. Albano was getting like manager of the year or something, and that's when Piper came out and broke the album because he was disgusted that Captain Lou was being associated with these celebrities and stuff like that, which looking at it now kind of based off a shoot, really. And of course, that's when Piper kicked Cyndi Lauper, and then he power slammed David Wolf, her manager. And then that all led to this match on MTV with Hogan and Piper. And then I want to say it was Mr. Wonderful and Orton, who maybe it was just Paul, but they basically jumped Hogan in the middle of the match, and then Mr. T jumps in for the save, and then it's chaos. The cops get involved, and that's what led to your WrestleMania 1 moment. Before I forget, though, because I spent a lot of time on that, there was one other match. Hogan versus Arn Anderson from WCW Nitro. The finish, basically, I want to say Hogan might have got powder in his eyes or a shoe to the face from like Elizabeth or a woman. But after that, basically, Iron either hits the spine buster or DDT, but he gets the pin on Hulk Hogan. And I know this isn't about Arn Anderson, but that's a damn memorable match for me because I never saw Arn Anderson pin Hulk Hogan. But in that time period, Arn Anderson got a pin over Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair.
Wow. Now, Dave, we're at our top 3.
Yeah. I didn't keep track, but I'm assuming Hogan and Boss Man have to be on there somewhere.
Yeah, Hogan, Boss Man, the cage match.
Did Hogan and Hanson make enough lists? I feel like they were on a few.
Yeah, Hogan and Hanson definitely did. And then, I mean, it's your pick. Is it Randy Savage? Is it the Ultimate Warrior? Is it Andre?
Oh, it's Hogan Andre for sure. Yeah, out of that, that's my pick. That's
We'll go with your pick because I mean those were all about even. But I mean, if you look at a lot of people's lists, it's like WrestleMania 3, 5, 6, or like I threw in 2 to be different. Some had 18, but like that sweet spot was that Andre Savage.
Yeah, even Mikey Fred had Hogan Savage from WrestleMania 7. So.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So it's definitely that Hogan era. I think Hogan wrestled Sid at 8 and 9 was when he did the tag match, but then at the end of it came in and took the title.
Came in and stole the title.
Yeah. He did. I fucking hated that shit.
So the
But
first
yeah,
one to go almost has to be Hogan and Hansen, no matter how interesting it sounds, right?
I think so.
Because it's
Because
going up against the cage match or it's going up against that Andre match.
yeah,
And I mean, while this is probably the best match that Hogan put on,
in ring wise,
because
sure.
because now that you bring up Hogan Muda, I've seen that before, and you see some work from Hogan that you don't see from the United States.
Working
So,
the arm.
yeah,
Yeah, some good
I don't
stuff.
think we're gonna get that with Stan Hansen, but
Mhm.
you are gonna see probably a different side of Hogan, and I will definitely watch that later.
Um, to me, it's Hogan Andre. And, I know like as far as the votes went, it kind of skidded right in there. But to me, when we get down to this, and it's our opinions, man, look, I know why people like that Hogan Boss Man. It's that superplex off the cage there, and it's amazing. But there's really nothing more iconic than Hogan slamming Andre for the first time, and then the Pontiac Silverdome. The Laps fan, if you guys watch that, Pat, they did a thing where they went to revisit the Silverdome years later as it was getting torn down because it was so important to them. It's just such a moment. Like I
Plus
can't
the
deny.
Piper's Pit leading up to it, like
Yeah.
that was when WWE told their storyline so good that like Piper had a talk show segment
Mm-hmm.
that he would get his matches over. He got this angle started.
Forget the whole cross thing getting ripped off, or Piper's like you're bleeding and stuff like that, which was huge. Obviously, here's the other thing that was huge. I still remember to say it was the reply when Hogan went back out on Piper's Pit, whether it was the following week or week after, and Piper's like trying to talk to him, and Hogan's distraught. He's not even look. He's looking around. He looks distraught, and you never saw this side of Hogan before. And Piper is just flipping out finally. He's like, I need to know, are you going to wrestle Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3? And Hogan just responds and yeah! And the crowd's freaking out. And it's just like, holy shit!
Yeah,
It's
I
so
was
well
watching
done.
that on one of my old WWF sets, and it's interesting to watch week to week how it develops. And
Yeah.
oh god, so Dave, you know what the music means. I don't think there was gonna be a debate on this. It had to be Hogan Andre.
All day long. Okay.
And guys, thank you for joining us again on the 531 this week, and we will see you again next week. Have a good one.
Later.